What is shadow work? It's a term that we hear so much, but what does it actually mean? So first to start off with, what is the shadow? So the shadow are the qualities that are unknown by the ego. It's qualities that we have split off from ourselves. They are invisible to us, but they're still attached to our ego. Shadow material can be both positive and negative traits. They're things that we've shut away, we've repressed about ourselves, and also what we find is we commonly project them onto other people. Our shadow is feared by the ego. So shadow work is really about facing the naked truths of ourselves. It's about accepting ourselves, all aspects of ourselves. When it comes to shadow work, the goal isn't healing, it's actually wholeness. People tend to do, like Carl Jung says, some pretty absurd things in an effort to avoid facing their shadow. I'll give you an example because there's shadow work, and like I said, there's positive and negative aspects of self that can end up in the shadow. So, for example, for me, as a psychic medium, now speaking to you online about it, there were times when, from childhood, this was something that I repressed into my shadow for fear of judgment, for fear of ridicule, for fear of being abandoned. So these are aspects that when I went down into my own shadow, did my own shadow work, these were repressed qualities that I had to heal so that I could then, there's also things like the golden shadow. This is when it's, more of those positive aspects of self that are rejected either in an attempt to fit in or not to, in fear of being misunderstood or judged. But shadow work, like I said, it's about creating this regaining really a wholeness within the self. It isn't necessarily like going and healing anything that you perceive to be wrong or bad about yourself. I just wanted to clear that up because shadow work is super important, and it's also something that you should do really gently because there is a reason why these things ended up in our shadows. So when you are approaching shadow work, you can either do this intentionally, or for myself, it was a lot of the times I was being triggered or life was forcing me to deal with things. So it's be really gentle in this process because sometimes shadow material can be quite confronting depending on what has ended up in your shadow. So when it comes to things like the golden shadow, like I said before, this is aspects that are positive aspects of ourselves. These are gifts, these are talents, these are qualities that are, amazing about ourselves, but we've rejected them into the shadow for fear of maybe standing out or being too much. So for women, I find a lot of the times it is like the witch wound. It is things like our psychic abilities, mediumistic abilities, intuitive abilities. It could also be things like creativity or sensuality, and sexuality is a huge one. I find anyway, especially for women. So when you're doing this work, be really gentle and make sure that you're building enough ego stability to be able to do it, because sometimes when it comes to shadow work, it can really shake you to the core when you uncover aspects of yourself that you've repressed for a long time. If you'd like to chat about it, let me know as well. I think shadow work is fascinating and probably some of the most important work you can do, but it is also, I need to stress this enough, something that you should be really gentle with when it comes to doing this work, because it can be real life altering. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I'm Jackie, a psychic medium, helping you navigate love, life, and loss.